We're the Gnostics dualists. This is the 10th in my series on Gnosticism for today. Dualism is a doctrine that splits nature and culture, or nature and spirit, inner and outer, higher and lower. Gnostic readings, if you take them literally, seem very dualistic. They talk all about the spirit that we need to rescue from the prison of the body, which was a trope that goes back to Plato and then the Orphic Mysteries, and it works its way into Gnosticism. It's also characteristic of Hellenistic thought and culture of the time Gnosticism was beginning to flourish, 2nd, 3rd, 4th centuries. So were the Gnostics dualistic though? I've mentioned in a few videos that reading them literally is often very problematic. And they tended to speak in metaphors. They often held what they gave us as wisdom stories, with one or two possible exceptions, like the homilies they wrote, the sermons. But I want to add another layer to this, which is that there are Gnostic terms that function like code words, that are terms that were very commonly used in their day that they seem to use in a different way. And I have a couple of examples. So one of these is the term flesh. And all through the Gnostic stories, you hear flesh talked about unfavorably with a few exceptions. So it's easy to conclude, for instance, that the Gnostics hated the body. But it gets fuzzier when you realize that by flesh, Gnostics often meant ignorance. So in the first revelation of James, Jesus actually says, by flesh, I mean blind thought. And in the first book of You, Jesus explains to the disciples who seem to be understanding him to say the body's evil. He says, no, by flesh I mean ignorance. So something to keep in mind when you read that in the Gnostic texts, and there are other examples too. So for instance, male tends to be used as somehow good, superior, active, bright, spiritual, things like that. Female, the opposite of all that. But again, these are code words. So at one point, actually at several points, some of the Gnostic goddesses are described as being male, and it's tricky to know when that's to be taken literally, that they're manifesting in a masculine way, or if that's a Gnostic code word that doesn't really mean gender. So it does reflect the patriarchal bias of the time, to be sure, but it's not meant to be taken literally, at least in some cases. So that's another, the male, female is another example. Like Barbelo, the goddess is often described as triple male, which we could translate roughly as very spiritual. So a third example is nature. Nature to a Gnostic seems to mean unconscious, fallen into unconsciousness. And one of the big tropes that goes around about Gnosticism is Gnostics hate nature, they hate earth, they hate all of that. And I wanted to read you a couple of examples to the contrary, because again, nature seems to be a code word for unconsciousness for the Gnostics. So here's one. For I am in all sovereignties and powers, and in angels, and in every movement of all matter. That's the divine talking about itself in three forms of first thought, which is, the old name for that is the trimorphic protonoia. Some of these terms. Here's one. Adam came from two virgins, the virgin spirit, no, the spirit, can't talk today, and the virgin earth. I'll read that again. Adam came from two virgins, the spirit and the virgin earth. That's from the Gospel of Philip, which also mentions that truth comes into the world clothed in images and symbols. In other words, not literally. The earth upon which the light of forethought, another name for Sophia, one of the Gnostic high goddesses, the earth upon which the light of forethought spread was called Holy Adamas, which means the holy adamantine earth. Also, in every respect, the sense perceptible world is worthy of being preserved entire. Those are from Marsanus, the Gnostic text. Here's another one. From that time on, all the authorities have honored the blood of the Virgin, and the earth was purified because of the blood of the Virgin. That's from On the Origin of the World. So it's not so simple to say, were the Gnostics dualistic? Yes or no. Did they hate the earth? Yes or no. Did they hate the flesh? Yes or no. If we take them at their literal word, then sure they were, but they themselves warn us against literal interpretations and sometimes make fun of them.